Do you use minstrels or clerics?
So I use, yeah, I did ping cleric's weapons there. Yeah, I'm not 100% on any one thing, but the default is minstrel. Yeah, and then clerics is okay. Even
I think
some
Trailblazers work
Condi,
too.
yeah, some Condi is good too, because I mean it's mostly about the, like, people get caught up on stat names, and it's not about that at all. It's mostly about numbers and trying to get enough of each stat. So minstrels is the default that gives you the main stuff that you're after, being the toughness, vitality, healing, power, concentration. But you're not like a firebrand, you're not like an NG or a tempest. You're not focusing on healing that much. It's really about self-sustain, boon duration, and then some Condi is good too, just because playing staff scepter, you put out a lot of Condi anyway. So yeah, it's mostly about self-survival. Your stats are not terribly important, to be honest. Like if you can stay alive, that's kind of the main thing you're going for. Anything beyond that is just bonus, Condi or a bonus power. Yeah, soldiers would work okay for you. That's definitely a decent option. I mean, the power is not going to help you that much. That's where you could switch that out for something that would give you concentration for more boon and stuff like that. All right, so what's the role that you guys understand for the mesmer in the group?
Portal trolling.
Boon strip. If we're using shield, the stun that goes back and forth during team fights. You can
Portals,
do
strips, CC.
mantras
Yep.
for stability if you need it. If we are running low on revenants.
Yep. Yeah. It's a utility class. So people call it support, but it's not really that. It's not supporting the group. It's not providing healing for the group. It's not providing boons for the group. At one point, Mesmer did do that. A while back, there was something different with Signet of Inspiration. You could spam boons, and that was different. Now it's really about boon rip and the specialized CC pulls that you can do, with a lesser focus on the portal and the stealth aspect.
Pretty good range.
That's the main reason that I opt for staff here. Like, the default that you would see normally is the focus, scepter, sword, shield, which is not bad. And if you have a really solid comp and you're melee pushing, the shield can have some good application. But range is everything. And the reason that I go with staff is due to the sigil. So let me ping that again. So the sigil of absorption is really good for a lot of boon removal. And as a bonus, you get those boons. You steal the boons. Only 3-second cooldown. So that triggers when you interrupt a foe. And because you have staff, your staff 5 interrupts at 1200 distance. So on top of having your null field that you can remove boons at 1200 distance, you have a second one with your staff 5 to do the same thing. So you can double stun or remove boons at max range. Necros can't do that. All the Necro corrupts, even though they're awesome at corrupting, are 900 range. The Shades, the Wells, all that is closer in, is mid-range, if you will. So the Chrono has that range advantage that you can get the first boons ripped off before anybody else can touch them. So that's kind of where you need to kind of get a feeling for how far 1200 is. And if you have instant casting with range indicator set, then you can kind of hold down your 5 key and move around and see where your green circle is going to go until you're right at the edge of that. So like right about here, I'm almost to alpha. The edge of my green circle would hit him. So you're trying to get up to where the enemy Zerg is on the far side of your green circle, drop it, and then get back. Within, you know, staying with your group, of course, but you're long range. You're right there with the revenants. You're trying to get your boon rips in so the revenant hits work. And yours casts way faster. Your instant cast on 5 and on null field is faster than anybody else's skills. Aside from maybe a necromark or something. So you're looking at doing that before you think about pulling, before you think about grab well, anything else on that side. You can just step up, drop a little that, drop a little that, and then they're just naked of boons. Anything that their firebrands applied is gone.
Did you explain continuum slip or split?
No, I've literally just started, so that's...
Oh, okay.
So that's just the basic range, and the null field is huge. It is boon removal. It's 5 target and it pulses, similar to the necro well. So if they're standing still, if there's a choke, if there's a spot up on the wall that you want to pull people from, the null field is your, you know, your go-to. It does remove condies from us as well, but the main purpose of it is the boon removal from their main group. All right, so that's I'm just kind of going at it as in terms of, you know, what you do in a fight in progression. But if anybody has any questions along the line, let me know. All right, so we've gave them a little range poke, if you will. That's something you might hear somebody call out. We got our staff on them. Got the null field on them. Now, this is going to depend on what the commander is doing. At this point, they're a little bit weakened, and the situation is going to dictate what happens next. So you may have to pull back at this point. You cannot overcommit and try to do something else if the group is moving. Max range on staff is 1200. On the null field, 1200. So it pretty well matches the rev for most of it. Now, if you screw up, if you get too far up, you're trying to drop the 5 on them, and things change and you get stunned, you have staff 2, instant move back, and you get a clone out of it. So that's your oh crap, I gotta back up, I'm too far out. You just have to be aware it will put you back in relation to the direction you're facing. So if you're not facing the right way, you go the wrong way. All right, so little range poke.
It's just opposite your target. It is away from who you're targeting. It doesn't matter where you're facing with the 2.
So you can do it when you're targeting nothing, and then it goes back related to the way you're facing. So you don't even have to target. The next thing you're looking at that point, range-wise, is your pull. And this is probably the most important thing of the whole training, because I didn't know how this worked for years, and most people really don't know how this works unless they played Mesmer. The 2-use skill on the focus 4 is just a hack to most people that don't know how it works because they get yanked off the wall all the time. It's that swiftness line that you see Mesmer's put down for swiftness, the 4 skill, but then the second use pulls enemies to it. So yeah, go for it. Put one out. Second skill, you can yank them. If you're fancy, you can try to yank people to the side. Like a good Mesmer will try to yank the back line of an enemy group with it, and not the front line, because the back will be more vulnerable. And there is a bit of patience if you're actually in a fight, because it takes a minute to cast that and then to press it the second time. So you have to get comfortable with placing it and then the second use when they're actually in range of it. It has super long range though.
What is the range on the pool?
So the line itself has a 900 range, and then it's a radius of 600 to that line. So it's about 1200 if you add the two together, depending on how, which side of it they're on and things like that. But yeah, 1200 range pull, and angle doesn't matter. It's going to pull them right to that line, unless they have stability. Stability is going to avoid that. So that's where you, as a smart boon ripping Mesmer, know you have to get a boon rip on them before you try to pull them. And yeah, that's people saying, "Oh, I got pulled, I had stab." No, you didn't. They already ripped that from you. You just didn't notice it happen. So you can get your staff 5 on them first to rip. If it's up on a wall or something, you place your line, you yank them, and then you could add in a grab well if you've got space there, and then they're really stuck. I think I may have had mass invis on the elite, but Gravwell's the other main option. Okay, now that is going to work. Like on even terrain, it works pretty normal. But what's next level is kind of pulling people off walls, and it takes a bit to figure this one out. But saying this thing over here. Sorry, my clones are going nuts over there. Saying this is an enemy wall. What you'd be looking to do is place the line halfway up, and then it pulls them off of the top towards that line. So like, say here. And then you press it again, yoink, and they'd go down towards that line. You don't want to put it all the way up at the top, or else they're just going to be pulled to the edge of the wall and they won't fall. And I know not everybody's super talkative or talks in comms a lot, but if you are doing a pull, say something. Verbally. People have to hear that so they can then follow up and kill that person. Because even if you just pull them to the edge of the wall, if they throw damage up there, that person's fried. And then the firebrands can combo on and get their pull on them as well. And yeah, that's really the way to catch them is if everybody's focused on that pull. I am in combat here. Let me back up. All right, so basic range poke, boon removal. We've got the infamous pull. Now, beyond that, it's more about your shatters. And that is a missed piece, and probably where you get most of the removal. So your domination trait for boon removal on shatter happens wherever you're at and wherever your clones are at. And this is a bit more the hard part of Mesmer, I feel, or at least not a part I'm good at. But your shatter skills are stronger the more clones you have out, kind of like Necro Shades. You have more out, you hit more people, same idea. So if you are able to get clones out before you shatter, you will do more damage benefit as far as interrupts boon removal. You've got your staff 2 we mentioned to get a clone out. A lot of these only work if you have someone targeted. You have your focus 5, which is a 1200 clone. If you're using sword, you have sword 3 for another clone. And instead of where I put Signet of Midnight, that's another one you could put in, say, Decoy, or Mirror Images to have a stun break that also gives you a clone. But that is just honestly getting better as a Mesmer. It's not necessary. You can play the whole fight and not worry about clones or even get any clones and still do great. Because the shatters happen where you're at. So we've done our range poke out there. We've done, maybe pulled a few. So we got some downs already. Now the commander's thinking they're weakening and we're ready to push them. So we're pushing up and, 3, 2, 1 stab. All right, go. All right, so saying this turret is the enemy, that thing right in the middle. That little, that thing that's spitting damage there. So you remove a boon every time you shatter. Plus, the 5 is the number of targets that you get on each one. So that just kind of exponentially. If you do all your shatters, skipping the Continuum split. Don't mess with Continuum split except for you are doing, something specific. You just run in, bam, 3, first shatter, second shatter, third shatter. If there are 5 people there, you've probably removed at least 25 boons. Because the F3 is extra strong because you remove boons when you daze them.
So double dips?
It can get exponentially higher. It gets silly. Like this extra trait, disabling a foe removes boons from them. So you remove boons if you interrupt with your F3. The same thing for your pull. The same thing for grab well. That removes 2 boons. Every shatter removes boons. If you get into your staff, you remove more boons there because you'll be rotating back to that. So it's easy to get top boon removal if you have a good group and you can do your initial skills and then just run through and mash all your shatters. There's really not that much more to it, to be honest. Everything else beyond that is repeating the first part with your null field and your pulls. So we did the initial pop to get their boons off. We melee push in, and we shatter everything. Then at that point, the fight keeps moving. You don't just stand there, of course. It's always mobile. By that time, you've probably got your null field again. So you can reach out at range and drop a null field on them. And then your pull is ready again. So you're trying to stay at range until the commander's ready to melee push, and then you're shattering. The scepter auto, I believe, gives you more clones, if I'm thinking right.
Third hit.
Yeah, so if you don't forget your auto attacks, you can get more clones out from auto attack with scepter. And the block, the 2 for the scepter will, not only is it a block, if they hit back, you get another clone. So just bonus clones, bonus shatters. And man, the Minstrels really makes you really tanky. Like, you are light armor class, but add in the support from the group, you can run right through an enemies, or you're fine. Like, I don't die a whole lot on micro. And the good thing is that we have arc DPS, so it's real easy to see if you're doing boon removal or not. And there's always something you can be pressing. You can get a clone out there, get it up and shatter on them. You can reach out with your staff. Like the cooldowns are really good. So if you're on your range, you should always have something to hit them with. And then when it's time for melee, you're in there and you're shattering like crazy. All right, any questions on that so far?
So how do you feel about sword? I like using the Blurred Frenzy and the Illusionary Leap because it gives me a clone, and then I can jump to as a straggler and just immobilize 3 targets.
The jump's going to work for Mirage, but it's not going to work for Chrono, as far as the dodge skill leap thing, if that's what you mean.
Oh no, the 3 on the sword gives you a clone, and you can swap places with it. And when you do, you immobilize them. 3 people.
Oh, okay. Yes, I know what you're talking about. All right. So I have used sword, and I don't trust skills that are weapon movement related. They're very meta, and a lot of people use them really well, but there is such a risk that you're going to hit 2 accidentally and root yourself in place, and then you're done. Like that risk to me is not worth it. It works well if you're a really good Mesmer, or a lot better in roaming situations, but your clone's probably going to die before you can swap places with it in a big fight. So I don't often get that option to use that second use on the 3. But the flip side is the 2, it makes you invulnerable briefly, so there's some benefit to it, particularly if you're playing more power. It's just I like the extra block from the scepter a bit more. I guess that's what it comes down to. But yeah, sword is totally a decent option. I mean, sword focus is, yeah, I run that on my roaming Mesmer all the time. That's doable. Yeah, the same thing with I mean, a lot of times you might see NGs talking about, oh, you use hammer. Well, you're gonna yeet yourself off a cliff. Like, is your rotation against the golem gonna be better? Maybe, but in real world, at least once a night, you're gonna go right off a cliff by accident, and it may not be worth it. If you're good enough, it might be worth it, but that one time, yeah, it's gonna just make you change your mind. All right, so that's Boon Rip Mesmer in a nutshell, really. That's what I do on Mesmer. That's a really good build for commanding, because you're you're in front anyway. You can reach them first, get that staff hit on them. The other things that you'd be doing with Mesmer are more in terms of the portal, and then running stealth trait, so you can do a veil or more better mass invis. And while I'm mentioning that, yes, Continuum split. So Continuum split is a weird chrono thing with the F4 that basically lets you go back in time so you get all your skill recharges again. The timing is weird on it, though. You basically want to put down the Continuum split thing, you do the skills you want to get back again, and then it resets and you get those skills again. So it's mostly something that you'd be using for your mass invis, so you can double it. So you would do Continuum split, mass invis, and then you get mass invis again to do it a second time. It takes a little practice, though, because the timing is pretty specific, and it's also going to revert your position back to where you first cast it. So it's not a good thing to hit during a mobile fight, or you're just going to probably blink back to a place you don't want to go. But yeah, separate, because the mass invis will kind of affect each other. And try the old Continuum split, mass invis, and then Continuum split again, or mass invis again. Because the mass invis hits 10 people, so if you Continuum split it, then you're stealthing 20 people by yourself. So technically 2 Mesmers can stealth a whole group of 40. Telling clones from real players. Okay, so I am not the person to answer that. I know there's like multiple categories, like between phantasms and clones, and some look more ghostly than the other. Can anybody answer that one?
You just look at what they have on their little boon thing. If you see a signet, clones don't copy the signets. If you see food, clones don't copy food.
There you go. Yep.
If
So
you see
targeting them.
20,000 boons, like that's probably a player and not a clone.
So let's see. This thing I'm casting right now, this will be a clone. So that's a clone. Looks just like me. But yeah, no boons. Now the one I was not sure of is like, say, the Focus 5. This will do a Phantasm. So that's ghostly. It's not really, doesn't look as much like me. But they both will shatter.
And the phantasms will turn to clones too afterwards if you have a clones up. If you don't have 3 up.
And 3 is the
Yeah.
max amount you can have of everything, right?
You can have 3 clones and you can have phantasms up as well at the same time. But the phantasm will go away if you have 3 clones instead of becoming a clone itself.
And you see the dots above your shatters. That's kind of your keeping track of them. So you can put out your things, and then those little dots fill up, so you know you have X amount of clones. So generally, you're trying to fill it up. You get all those 3 full. You know you have your 3 clones, and then you do your shatter.
And I think also important for the context is that everything's an illusion. So within illusion, you have the subcategories of clones and phantasms. So there are traits that work for all illusions. But when you cast a phantasm, it will later become a clone. But everything's in an umbrella of illusions. So if you see something mentioning illusions, it's everything.
Gotcha. Okay, so illusions is clones plus phantasm. That's good to know. All right, so the next thing is really the portal, which is, I think it's the hardest part of Mesmer, because it's high pressure and you have to hide and stealth and not get caught, and if you screw it up, everybody dies. So the flip side is that you can totally save the day and, you know, make it so we don't have to break walls, make caps quicker, surprise the enemy, hitting them from the side, get all the glory. And so you would often be swapping to a different build template, really, for this, because you need stealth. And well, let me give you another build. Not that this is the one, but this is my Mesmer roaming build. So the last trait in chaos there, the prismatic understanding, that one doubles all your stealth. So that's highly worth it if you're really needing to kind of either stealth the group regularly. If we don't have NGs and you really got to stealth people, that'd be one to go for. Or if you've got to stealth yourself and get in there and do the portal, or you're hiding, you know, something like that. But regardless, you have a ton of skills that can stealth yourself, that you're a Mesmer. So if you need to be doing a portal, your aim is to stealth yourself, run in there really damn fast, and then drop the other end of the portal and everybody appears where you are. So you don't really need your null field in this situation at all. So if it's just a quick portal, I would drop null field, put in your portal entry. If you already have Signet of Midnight, you have that stealth. Your Mantra of Concentration is good to keep just for a stun break. You have your Mass Invis, so you can step to the side. And another one here could be Blink, just so you can move even faster. So you could... You start with your portal. Yeah, and everybody try it out. So drop your initial portal. Mass Invis, and then we're going to run on the other side. Staying in stealth. We're going to run on the other side and drop the portal here. And portal down. Boop.
Did you replace portal with feedback? Or replace feedback with portal, I mean? In the build you linked?
I switched back to the other. That's just one I had just to bring that trait, really. But yeah, I would switch out feedback with that. Yeah. Let's see. Let me ping what I actually have on that one. Yeah, so I took out null field and I put in portal, and then I put in the blink. It's not, you don't need a crazy amount of stealth. Like the Mass Invis might get you there, but you still need a stun break, and the blink will let you move really fast. So yeah, you're aiming to just move really quick. And so the other thing is, the whole point of the portal is to surprise the enemy. So you want it out of their visual field of view. You don't want it directly in front of them. You want it at least a bit behind them and to the side. And the other piece with that is, if you can relay that and tell your team which way to face, they'll be able to cast a little bit quicker. A lot of this is kind of, you know, being able to communicate okay with a commander and talk about landmarks and, you know, left, right, whatever. So in my mind, the middle of those two blocks is a gateway, is a, you know, so a choke. It's basically a choke. So commander is going to say, okay, give me a portal back inside there on the left side of the choke. I'm like, okay, I'm going to Mass Invis myself. I'm going in. I'm going to blink. I'm going to get there. All right, I'm here. Freeze. Okay, everybody face to the right, and I'm dropping the portal, and portal down. And everybody portals in. I didn't drop my initial portal because I'm a bad Mesmer. Here's the other road. There it is. So that would be bad if you forgot to drop the first portal and then ran all the way there. That would be really bad. The portal can only do 20 people. That's kind of the limitation that makes it not work as great all the time in our groups. And so if we have 30 people, you drop a portal, only 20 can take it. Those other people, the 10 people are going to be random in the group. So we may have all our damage to get the portal and none of our support, or vice versa. So ideally, we either have less than 20 people or we have a second portal. And that's, of course, requiring another Mesmer that is also ready and willing. Now, Tulip, you tell me what you think with this one, because you're much more experienced on portals than me. Say we are trying to portal 20 plus people and we have 2 Mesmers. Would you send them both together, or would you send one and then the second one takes that portal and drops another? Do you know what I mean?
If if the second one, like if they both practiced, right, and they know what they're doing, I would send them both together because there's no guarantee unless, sometimes we don't run just us, right? So with the pickups that we have, they may take the portal and then our second Mesmer doesn't even get through, right? Because it's not going to prioritize him. It's going to prioritize the portal dropper.
And that would suck if the second Mesmer couldn't even get over. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, that's something that I have just thought about and makes sense. And yeah, so we would want 2 Mesmers going together. They both basically do the same thing and just put their portals side by side, So let's try that. Let's separate a bit, line up, and we're gonna try doing a portal to the other side. Like separated, so there'll be a bunch of portals. It'll be confusing as hell if we're in one lump. Like spread out a bit. All right, so we're dropping our initial portal. Make sure you're like not on top of anybody. And then we're gonna mass invis, stealth. 3, 2, 1. Going across. Stay spread out, or the portals will be overlapping. And drop the portal. Boom. And you can take it back and forth, just for fun.
Nice. Portals.
A lot of portals. Yeah. The other good use for that is, say we're taking, hills or bay, one of the keeps that has inner and outer. We get all the way through inner, and then something happens, we get called off, most of us die, whatever. The Mesmer at that point needs to be proactive and think independently and be like, all right, this is not going well. I'm going to hide. And then the Mesmer, because we have not capped it, we don't, we're not marked. They don't know where you are. You can just hide somewhere in that keep with your stealth and your Mesmer sneakiness, and then tell the commander, hey, I'm hiding in here and I can portal you guys in. Same thing with the 20 person limitation, but you can get a second portal in at that point and get a free capture. Excuse me. That's a good point. Yeah, we are in PvE technically here, so some of the effects and numbers are not going to be exactly the same. And yeah, the duration and the range on the portal are definitely the tough parts. Like getting a feel for how far you can portal is just practice and figuring out. Elevation messes with it a bit, I guess. I haven't. But so just a general thing with Guild Wars. Underneath your skills, there's a red area where it'll be like basically a red thing if you cannot use it, and if related to range. I don't think that applies to this, but the range for that is 5,000. That's just something you have to kind of get a feel for as to how far that is. It's obviously bigger than this, but somebody was saying it's like the distance from SM inner to outside. I guess that would vary on which side of SM you're on, but
that's a pretty good estimate, but yeah, you need to get a feel for it.
when you have the first portal open, how long do you have before it expires? Before you, isn't there a time?
60 seconds.
30.
It's 30 in World vs. World, so 60 here. Okay. That's what you're saying. Gotcha. Any questions on portals or really any Mesmer things?
As a commander, how many Mesmers?
I'll be all right. Soon.
How many Mesmers? That's a good question. Thank you. All right, so, and this is more on group composition commanding than really Mesmer itself, but the whole balance of the group between support and damage is something that the Mesmer doesn't really even contribute to. Kind of similar to the Warriors, they're not really, I mean, they might do some cleansing, you might do some cleansing, but your main job is not that. Your main job is boon removal, so. Really, I mean, there's not a scenario where I would really be like, oh man, we need a third Mesmer. I mean, it's not the end of the world if we have an extra one, but they're not really going to be doing anything. They're not going to add any more than 2 Mesmers can do.
Makes sense.
And some of that's just from my personal preference and the size of the group we have. Like if we were, if we were blobbing up to 50, it would probably make sense to have a few more. But as is, if we have 5 Mesmers, then that's 5 people who are not putting out damage or support, and that's going to hurt overall. Right, pseudo scourge. So you're gonna, and another piece to that too is that there's only so many boons to rip. Like you can absolutely have too much boon rip in the party, and then you end up with not enough damage. Scourges are dual purpose, so they're putting out the strips at shorter range, and they're also putting out the damage. So a Scourge is not probably going to get as much damage as a Rev or a Weaver or a DH, but that's okay because they're doing strips. But the Mesmer is all strip. Certified stripper. The pull is hard to do without, though, really. Like, especially as in fighting outnumbered or a lot of different situations. Just being able to reach out and yank people in it's huge. That's where we normally get our first few kills. You take advantage of people off tag. That lets you kind of, I guess that's another part that I like about Mesmer. Like, because you're not actively support or damage, it lets you zoom out and pay more attention to the whole fight and what's going on instead of just, mashing away at your rotation. Because you are kind of trying to predict where the enemy commander is going to be. You're trying to, because your line takes a minute to get out. So you're kind of trying to anticipate their movement, pull at the right time, but also you're picking on the weak ones. You can start to get your clones on the squirrels off to the side. You can pick on the squirrels with your pulls and pull them away from the enemy group. And just reach out with your staff. Just pull them a bit to the side. And then that's the first one of the enemy to go down, and it goes from there.